Carbon Ether Podcast, where knowledge meets understanding. I am the astute Sharif Prescott, and before we begin, I want to say to you guys, it is a pleasure to be amongst such sagacious men. Now, with that being said, I would like to introduce the panel. We have Chris Brown, D. Poe, Austin Newcomb, and Travis Nunn. How's everybody doing today?
Great, brother.
Awesome. Today we have Austin, who's going to lead this talk, the miseducation of the Negro versus the educated proletariat. But before we do that, we want to say a couple of things with this being our first show. This is our very first show. This is all our first time on a podcast. We all created this thing together, Carbon Ether Podcast, and it was created based on books. The books being burned around the country in various different states, which is I don't understand why anybody would want to deny the education of its people, especially when it comes to so-called black culture, melanated culture, but what have you. But here we are, and let's get it going. Austin?
Well, once again, I just want to welcome all the listeners to the Carbon Ether Podcast, right? This is our introductory show. We thank all of you for gathering with us and being able to get this informative channel out. We're hoping that we can bring the most astute knowledge to you, and in turn, it's a symbiotic relationship. We're all going to learn from each other. We want to ask right now that if you can please subscribe, hit the notification button, watch and share Carbon Ether Podcast on YouTube. All of the other links will be available later in the show.
I would like to say to our audience, the stars, we're missing a member today, Derek Cook. Unfortunate events in his family, so he couldn't be here. Also, we would like to give a big shout out to our producer, our brother, Chameleon,
Yes.
who just got out the hospital last night. He'll be back with us soon, so we wanted to make certain we said a little something for those guys. We love them, and we'll be seeing them soon, and you guys will be seeing them the next show. And back to you, Austin.
One of the missions is to explore overlooked literature, right?
Absolutely.
On this show, whether it be a 1 minute or 10-minute, we will always highlight a book, right? We want to transition from the television in your hand, right, to getting back to actual learning, right? We want to get away from, people think research is Wikipedia, but that's not Wikipedia. We will actually talk about some book bans and just fostering intellectual freedom, right? Do any of you guys have any comments on the current landscape of censorship when it comes to books or things of that nature?
I can chime in on that. Not just the books that we're reading or that we're not reading. I think that this show, thank you very much, and thank you for the brothers that's here, that it would be very disingenuous for us not to even introduce the book that you're introducing today at the beginning of the show, it being Black History Month.
Yes.
And I think you hit it right on the head, prime time to introduce this book to the world that haven't seen it. And this is one of the most read books that I know if you even tapping into Black history or Black, just not just Black History Month. But I just want to definitely echo that particular piece that you introduced this at the perfect time.
Yeah, as Austin put it, these current events that we're having right now in this current state with this current administration and other political figures across the country, I think it's absurd how they want to ban books, especially books that's not of a Eurocentric culture, and that's what we are. The dismantling of DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, the dismantling of the affirmative action, killing, what's it called, the abortion thing?
Roe
v. Wade.
Right.
Forgive me for that. What they're doing and what most of us are missing is everything that was set in place for us through civil rights. This current administration is taken away. And because of the lack of education, I think we're falling short, especially in our community. We think we know something based on we base a lot of things on emotions.
Right.
Sometimes you have to remove those emotions and focus more on your understanding, and that understanding only comes from your research, your reading. You're talking to someone who knows. For instance, Depot got 812 degrees. So
And counting.
And counting, So I find myself
Wow.
he and I when we're together, and Brown, like last week when we three were together, it was conversations for hours and nonstop. We had to tell ourselves we got to end this because we got other things we got to do, and plus I had that drive. So it's a beautiful thing, such as Travis and I.
Right.
Every day at work.
Right.
I might get on Travis' nerves, but I got this smart device in my hand that most of us don't use. I got this smart device in my hand. Hey man, you seen this right here? He over there working the tail off.
You did.
I'm interrupting because that's what's most important.
Right.
Brown will tell you, you may get 25, 30 emails from me a day.
Every
Ask
day.
D Pogue about the 3:30 in the morning.
Right.
Ask Brown about the
Right.
2:30 in the morning.
And I think
So-
that's what's important. Just like nothing of itself is bad. So when I was referring to the phones, it's obviously use business
Absolutely.
acumen and things of that nature. But a lot of times, as I was talking to Depot earlier, and I referenced, sometimes even me and my wife, as soon as I notice it, I snap out of it. We'll be at the house. We vibed in, but I can be on my phone for an hour or two. And we're just scrolling, right? So we want to. My brother always says, if he had this when he was in school, when he graduated in the early '80s, he said he'd be a billionaire already. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
But not to dominate the conversation. But I know that in a time when books are being challenged, banned or erased, we aim as the Carbon Ether Podcast to amplify those voices that deserve to be heard.
Think about this. I'm gonna give you some numbers and some facts. 2022 to 2023, you had about 2,000 books banned from public schools. We're talking public schools across America. Google this: 23 to 24, beginning of this new administration, 10,000 books are banned in America. 10,000 books, right? And that's public schools. We're not talking about just banned. We're talking about public school where your students are being educated. Since this administration has begun, right, January, they banned another 3,000 books. 3,000, that's a third of what we were talking about for the last 2 years. So just keep those numbers in mind, and that's steadily increasing, and we just started this new administration. So that's just something to think about.
Right. When they talk about blitzkrieg, all right?
Blitzkrieg.
Sweeping reforms.
Sweeping reform. And I don't even know how you consider that reform. As the guy who's in the seat of the presidency said, even when it comes to civil rights, and if you go back and you read civil rights, and everybody piggybacked off of that whenever it was passed.
Right.
They're going to dismantle, they're going to get rid of civil rights for the sake of emotions. Civil rights for everybody else is discrimination against white men.
Mm-hmm.
That's what he said. It's discrimination against white people. And for a lot of us that don't understand what civil rights is, civil rights eliminates discrimination. It keeps discrimination at bay. So when you have someone who's saying who spout rhetoric, it's nothing but rhetoric. There's no truth to what he's saying. It's about fixing and adjusting their base to go against everything else. And those of us who don't think critically, because now critical thinking is demonized.
Right.
If you think critically, oh, they're woke. Yeah. Well, you're supposed to be woke.
Right.
If you sleep, what do you get done? What do you learn while you sleep?
Right.
Absolutely nothing. So, with that being said, I digress and I pass it on to Travis.
Yeah, I want to piggyback off of you speaking of woke. I would say they deem the term woke as a bad thing, and they're getting rid of your ability to critical think. And as y'all were saying, with all the book bans, they still have summaries of those books, but those summaries are from somebody else's perspective. So you're getting somebody else's opinion on the book when you're not actually reading it and getting what you're supposed to get out of the book.
That's a valid point.
I send a whole fist pump to that.
That's a valid point.
That's a
Yeah,
great
that is.
So he
piggyback.
went to the bottom of the ocean on that one, Travis.
God dang, boy. Hey, Travis ain't said nothing the whole time, and all of a sudden that boy come up for air, and boy, it's over
Yeah, he
with.
spit something
Salute,
then.
brother.
Rubies and emeralds falling out of his
Yeah.
mouth. He did, but
So
no,
what's
seriously.
your take, Brown?
That was indeed with that what he just said. Even with me and your conversations about books, I mean, I salute you. First of all, in the podcast and the group of gentlemen we have here, because I ain't gonna, I can say this. I haven't been a big reader or whatever until you know what I'm saying, open your eyes, and then but you always been this way.
Right.
But I appreciate you reaching out to your brother. You've been always a brother to lift up everybody.
Inspirational.
It's a lot of brothers that have knowledge, but they don't like to share. And I appreciate that. And invite me to be a part of this podcast. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, all of you guys.
I'm elated to be
Yeah.
here. I'm excited. You might not can
Yeah.
tell, but
Yeah.
I'm jumping around on the inside. But I got
Hey y'all, it's our first time on the podcast. We all nervous as hell over here, so don't think nothing different. This shit is real.
I wanted
That
to.
camera boy is something else.
I jotted down some notes about some of the things that they talk about, arguments against book banning, and I'll share a couple of them with you. Book banning limits access to information and freedom of thought. That's plain and simple. Book banning can make it harder for our professional writers to earn a living, and it also endangers tolerance, free expression, and democracy. And that's what we were talking about. We were talking about the change of administration for this year.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And what's so sad to me is how we miss these things. We're so encapsulated with sports and everything else. Okay, cool. Everybody got to have some time to digress. I mean, not digress, but decompress.
Right.
To decompress. So we go out for that source of entertainment. But in that source of entertainment, because I'm around a lot of guys, or used to be around a lot of guys, they know sports. They know how many points LeBron James scored last year. They know his all his stats
Down to the minutes.
But ask them what's going on in the real time current state right here in America.
Right.
The things that matter to us the most.
Right.
Our civil liberties, our right to education, our right to freedom of speech or what have you.
Right. Prosperity.
Crickets.
Everything.
Everything.
Yeah.
They don't.
Right.
Man, I don't care about that. I don't care.
I
about
don't
that.
have an opinion on it. Right.
Because you don't care.
Right.
But even for myself as a kid, I kept a butt whooping. Why? Because I would never shut my mouth.
Right.
And guess what? At 50 years old, guess what I don't do? Never shut my mouth.
Right.
And I'm never gonna shut my mouth because I love everybody. It's all about love and prosperity for the entire country. But this dumbing us down.
Right.
As we say, as we go ahead and just jump on in here, Austin, you lead.
Right.
This dumbing us down.
Right.
This goes back way further than that guy who's in that seat. I don't know which one's in the seat. It's the musty guy or the dumpster guy, but they know somebody's in that seat. One of them running the White House.
Right.
Built by people that look like us
Yes.
on this panel. But we don't know anything.
Right.
When you look at most of the inventions in this country by us,
Right.
but we don't know anything. When you look at all the sciences, us, the creators of it, the progenitors, we precede
Right.
these things, but it's taken from us and we're ostracized and we're kicked out of it, and then they take it and they flip-flop it, the next thing you know, their image is on it. And this is no attack against anybody.
No,
we're just talking
not at all.
history. And if you disagree to disagree, then research to research, and then come back and holler at your boy, Reef.
Good deal.
Can you dig it? All right.
All right. So we'll thank you, Sharif.
I appreciate it.
I think we all could drop a whole bunch of diamonds on the subject.
Right.
We'll just kind of home it on in
Okay.
and move on. So obviously, guys, that's for the podcast for Carbon Ether. That's why it's crucial for us to discuss these books that are being censored or left out of academic spaces, and we just want to touch on things of how literature shapes our understanding of history, identity, and resistance, which, I'm only resounding what you guys have all said. I wanted to get you guys' opinion right before we segue into discussing our book for the day. We want to let everyone out there know that we're going to engage in some challenging conversations, some challenging material, right? And for us not to be, soft. Like we need to be pliable and be able to have those conversations, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, can we all just address very briefly, like how we're gonna touch these challenging topics and bring in informative information to the viewers?
Well, I mean, I think first of all, we're gonna have to be like really free thinking and just understand everybody's not gonna think like you.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So everybody's gonna have a different opinion, but all at the same time respect somebody's opinion. Don't get really. I mean, it's not that serious. Everybody's not gonna believe. We agree to disagree. We're not gonna agree with everything.
Right.
But like I said, just being respectful and go from there.
Yeah, I agree with Brown. Totally 100%. Travis, what do you think?
I would like for the viewers to know that we do this in unity, and the people that we are going against, they don't look at life from the same perspective as us.
Great.
No, they don't. When you look at the top 1%, the guy that's occupying the seat, go back and do some research. A lot of people like to say, "Oh man, you're getting your information from YouTube. You're getting your information from YouTube." Well, I like to say to that person, getting information from YouTube is paramount, because you have certain people on YouTube. You have your Roland Martins, you have your Brian Taylor Cohen, you have your Michael Popel. You got so many different avenues, so many different channels where you can get information. Philippe Shock Matthews.
Right.
It's so many different avenues. So getting this information from YouTube or from a TikTok or from the spots where people who have been embedded and embodied into politics.
Right.
This is what they do. They're going to give you the information. You take what you hear, discernment,
Right.
and you take that information and you go fishing.
Right.
You go down the wormhole until it turns into a rabbit hole, and now you come back up. When you come back up for air, you talk to a person like the likeness of a D. Pogue, yourself, Brown, him, or myself, or you do like I do. I reach out to some of these people via emails when they drop their line.
Right.
I'm sending my message in a bottle. I need the information.
I like what you said, Sharif, because that's exactly where I was going with it. If you guys out there in the podcast land or make it challenging, you can call us. You do have, like Austin was saying, click that like, subscribe button, reach out and tell us or ask us some questions that you may not know. Now, when it comes to research, you mentioned a lot of names. I was just referencing Dr. Umar Johnson. Dr. Umar Johnson was talking about the reading proficiency of our young black men, and you'll hear me talk a lot about the youth. So I'm a youth guy. So my platform is to simply educate our youth so they can go on forward, and then they can start to reestablish an education with all of the people, because they're going to get older. And if they research and they know, when you got a brother like Travis that can do phenomenal researching, then they can reach out to Travis and say, hey, is this true? I also challenge you to cross-reference. You get that reference. Absolutely. He was talking about YouTube and all of that. So you got a reference right there. Cross-reference it. Go look at somebody else. The book, understanding when a person write a book, they've done research on what they're writing. So that's the first part of it. And then challenge that, cross-reference that, and go find another book that talks about the same thing. We're just trying to encourage you to, my thing is to try to encourage you to read more so, hopefully youth are on this platform and that see us. And I'll give you some numbers. I like to talk facts. I like to talk numbers, so you'll hear me say that. So according to Dr. Umar Johnson and the research that I've looked at before I got here, when it comes to reading levels, and this should be proficient for, that's right, it really should hit home for our people and our culture. 8th grade, we're just talking 8th grade. Only 12% of black males are proficient in reading. 12%. of the whole 8th grade. We're talking national. This is a national number. 12th grade. Now, these are your students that are graduating, your sons and daughters that are graduating. 6% are proficient in reading. It's a problem with that. 85% of black students lack proficiency in reading. 85%. Now we're talking about, remember I was talking about young black boys. 85% is male and female. And in the 4th grade, only 12% are proficient in reading. Those numbers should scream out to you. So if I can't pick up this piece of paper or that book and read and understand, comprehend what I'm reading, who can I can't even be proficient on my job. I can't learn how to fix a bike, ride a bike. It's easy to just pour water in the radiator, but if I can't read and understand that, I know that we're getting to YouTube phase, and I know that we're like, oh, I'm gonna go on YouTube and find it. That's good. That's a reference. But then know how it works. Not just know how to work it. I can crank the car and drive it, but if it breaks down on the side of the highway, how can I change my tire? We got young men out there, and I don't want to switch the platform, but we got young men out there now that are being, for me, and I hope that this is another platform that comes up, and that's being babied or over nurtured by moms and dads. We're talking single parent household. We're talking double parent household where dad is not necessarily in that mode of sitting down reading. Have you ever had your son or daughter to come from school and you take 10 minutes, 5 if you will, and allow them to read to you so that you can hear them reading, right?
Absolutely.
That's very important. Now, not only are they reading, ask them what did they just read. Explain to me what you just read.
Absolutely.
And then that'll help us nationally, culturally.
Yeah.
So I'll yield my time there for a second.
Yeah, that's big.
I mean, Brian, you got 2 boys that's juniors in high school.
That's big with the reading, and the main thing is understanding what you read, because in school that was hard for me. You know, I had to read and keep reading something, because you had to read something and do the report.
Right.
So it takes time to really understand what you have read. You know what I'm saying? You got to, if you just can't pick it up one day and read, or if you're not familiar with reading or whatever, you're not going to understand what you read. So that makes sense. That'd be something for the future. And I appreciate you sharing it. To actually, with my boys, I mean, they're in 11th grade now, but it's still, you can read your whole life. So that's something I need to do, is spend more time with them with the reading, and
Absolutely.
yeah, that's big.
He's got twins, everybody. I'm trying
Okay,
to
okay.
grab me them twins. Boy. If I had twins, I'd be
You'll
a man.
give them back to
I
you.
know, that's right.
You'll give
That
them back.
ain't that bad.
But you saying that was a good segue into
Yeah, I mean, that was a great segue. And if I could just say, like, I think what I took from what you all were saying was, as you're delving into different subjects, no matter what it is,
Right.
and you're doing research, the researcher, right?
Right.
Just don't take something as face value, right?
Right.
As you may think one thing, but as you delve into it deeper and deeper, you'll start to form your own ideas and see what the facts
There
are,
it is.
right? It's not what I think, it's what the facts are.
Right.
But I think with that we can segue on and spotlight our book, written by Carter G. Woodson, The Miseducation of the Negro. So we want to not spend too much time here. We want to highlight the book. We want to summarize and highlight some of the major points.
Yeah.
Sharif, do you want to start while I take out a couple of little notes?
Yeah. In reading The Miseducation of the Negro, and I don't want to talk too much on this myself, because I'd rather the panel get some things in, because I'm blabbering as usual. I told you I don't shut up. But in understanding that the education that they received during the time wasn't even a full-out-fledged education, missing pages,
Right.
Outdated books.
Right.
But the so-called Negroes who did become educated go out and get their so-called higher degree. When they had to come back to the community from which they're from, they would thumb their nose. Mm-hmm. You didn't go out and get what I got. I went out and I achieved this and I achieved
Right.
that. And you didn't. So automatically they start thinking different. And it's not in a way where it's to uplift. You take that information, which you should have became a proletariat. But we'll be bridging into that in just a moment.
Right.
You go out and you get this education, and you come, and now you feel like you're better than the next man, when really you're not, because your education is truly null and void. You got some type of learning, but it wasn't the astute,
Exactly.
as I would put it. It wasn't that. So
Right. And now, before I give a little clip, right? So, just want you to know about Carter G. Woodson, right? Born 1875 in New Canton, Virginia. All right, we need to celebrate. He earned a PhD in history from Harvard University in 1912, making him the second black person to do so after Webb Du Bois. Okay, W.E.B. Du Bois. It just so happens, right? This was a fun fact for me. Maybe I had overlooked it. But we're in Black History Month, right?
Absolutely.
So we have Black History Month because of Carter G. Woodson. In 1926, he founded Negro History Week, right?
Started with 1 week.
Exactly. I won't delve too much into that, but as it relates, and gentlemen, please jump in, right?
Right.
I just wanted to give the viewers a quick summary, if that's fine.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So Sharif talked about published in 1933. The book critiques the American educational system for conditioning black students to feel inferior and to accept a subordinate place in society. Woodson argued that the system deliberately miseducates black Americans by omitting their history and achievements, reinforcing that Eurocentric worldview that discourages independent thought and self-sufficiency. Right, sort of like the old adage of history.
Yeah.
That's his story, right?
Yeah, his story.
I'll hasten. It's obviously a influential piece in discussions about education, systematic bias, and the importance of self-determined learning. Anybody want to jump in, or I can just finish this?
I will.
Yeah.
The thing that kind of pulled my attention to was the education system. As when we talk about miseducation, this system was designed to educate Europeans, right, if you will. Now, they're also educating us culturally, black people, if you will, to their way of life. So it's not benefiting us to be educated in that way. That's where the miseducation comes in. One of the things that Carter G. Woodson spoke about was, he said that, and I'm paraphrasing, he said that if you teach them this way, right, they're going to do things like he spoke about. I know you guys probably read the part where he spoke about making them go to the back door, say to receive food, for example. And if you continue to, if they're reading it, this is the right way, because it's the same thing we do. Again, my platform is the youth, so I want you to understand my passion about the youth first is going to always be uppermost in my mind when I'm talking about anything. So if I teach my youth, if I teach our mentees, if you teach your sons and daughters to always go to the back door and get their food, after they become teenagers and as they transition and matriculate through school, they're going to go to the back door automatically because that's what they know, right? They're going to only, I always tell people that people covet with what they know. By that, I'd simply mean that if you continue to teach them a certain way, they're just going to do it automatically. It's the same way when you're talking about slavery, right? And I don't want to delve into slavery too far, but if we're accustomed to saying as Southern people, yes, ma'am, no, sir, I've got youth that'll come and they'll hold that door, whether you black, white, or indifferent.
Yes.
And you got another white youth that'll go right in there and won't even say thank you. That's what we're teaching. We're doing that from my perspective because we're taught a certain way. We're taught what to believe. We're taught to sit to the elders' feet. Again, just to mention a little bit about my trip in Haiti, and they were talking about, as I sat at the elders' feet in Haiti, and I listened to the elders talk, 92 was probably the youngest age of the elder that I was speaking with. The rest of them were well over 100. And we said, we don't even know that we have people from that look like us that's well over 100. So I just wanted to mention that piece, that in this writing, in this book, he talks a lot about what you covet with is what you're going to do after you transition to become an adult. And guess what you're going to do after that? You're going to teach your children to do the same thing.
Right.
And they're going to still follow that thing, even if it's miseducation. So I just wanted to share that point with you gentlemen.
Great point. Valid point. And, if y'all would, let me read this right here.
Okay.
The miseducation of the Negro. The oppressor has always indoctrinated the weak with his interpretation of crimes of the strong. That right there should let almost any and everybody out there know. And that right there should speak volumes. Because, again, if he's indoctrinated the weak with his interpretation of the crimes of the strong. So if we're the weak, then who's the strong? Who's being indoctrinated and who's indoctrinated?
Right.
That's what we have to look at. And as Dee put it, you have to start with the youth. We have to start educating our youth from our perspective or from any perspective. And again, we want the audience to know this ain't an attack on so-called white people or the denigration of so-called black people. We're talking about past, a book that was written in what year, Austin?
1933.
1933.
Yes.
And we're in 2024. And we're still facing the same damn thing. So you can't tell me
25 now.
Yeah. You can't tell me that there isn't something systematically. And again, when I go right here, the purpose of the Miseducation by the Negro by Carter G. Woodson, to expose and critique the systematic way in which African American history, culture was marginalized and distorted within the American education system. And we're still in the same damn place today.
Right.
So once we go out and we start pulling ourselves up by our so-called bootstraps, guess what happens? Everything is torn down. Everything is taken away.
Right.
So for you brothers out there, and you know who you are, I salute you on your ignorance. So, you know. Anyways, Austin, back to you. My bad.
Yeah, no
I didn't
problem.
mean to rant.
No, you're fine. You're fine. So I think we've all have all put out some great points about the book. I just wanted to point out a few more. I won't go into detail, right? These are just some of the things that the audience can look forward to. I think what stood out to me a lot was how he talked about the mental conditioning, and especially when it comes to self-determination. Woodson called for black Americans to take control of their education and economic power, right? Supporting black-owned businesses and institutions, right? We have less now than when we had during Reconstruction, right? And I'm talking about through all levels of politics, finance, so on and so forth. We own and have less now than what we had.
We came from the antebellum period. And to capitalize on what he's saying, if you don't know, if you've never heard of Dr. Claude Anderson, Google him or YouTube him, and you'll get this economic honesty that he just presented to you. Dr. Claude Anderson, look him up, brilliant guy economically.
And the last thing I would like to point out before we move on or have any more comments about highlighted book, I think it was paramount when he talked about practical education, right? So he advocated for skill-based and vocational learning alongside the traditional academics to promote economic stability, right?
Right.
So in today's times, I mean, it's been a while since I graduated high school, right? But I don't know if they have things like wood shop or, we're not, a lot of the fathers who are mechanics and good at skilled, using their hands, these skills aren't being passed down, right?
No.
We're promoting, higher education, and that doesn't always mean college, right?
That's right.
So you have, when we talk about skills, we're not just talking about being car mechanics. We're talking about, I know a young man who travels the world. He's been to Dubai. He's been all over the world. He's an elevator and escalator technician, right? He learned it at a young age, straight out of high school. He's doing very well for himself and his family. So that was one of the big, with the light bulb went off for me as it relates to the book. Gentlemen.
I'll have my last words will be some of the things that point out, and I just put them in topics. The Eurocentric curriculum. Now, that was important to me. When you read the book, kind of focus on that point. Social control through education was great. The need for self-determination, but more importantly for me, it was the impact on black leadership. And then I think Austin mentioned, you mentioned W.B. Du Bois, as well as Carter G. Woodson. The impact on black leadership, if you ever go to the Atlanta Compromise and kind of look at that a little bit, don't mean to swing too far off. Now you're talking about Booker T. Washington right here in Alabama, down in Tuskegee, versus, or I shouldn't say versus, that's contrasting with W.B. Du Bois. That's thinking that, let me give it to you on a 60-second thing. So you got W.B. Du Bois that's pushing education through leadership, through collegiate education, going to college, and you have Booker T. Washington that's saying, "Hey, you can do this, skills, trade school, that kind of thing." So he's saying, "Hey, we need this leadership. We need W.B. Du Bois to say, hey, we need people in college. We need good leaders. We need that. Everybody can't be a leader." Then Booker T is saying, "Hey, but we need carpenters. We need plumbers. We need mechanics." I think that if we merge those two, I think that every young man, again, my youth, I think that every young man and woman should be able to do the basic skills necessary for survival and support of your family.
Absolutely.
Teach your sons and daughters to change a tire. Teach your sons and daughters to cook. Teach your sons and daughters to read. Teach your sons and daughters to do all of these things that are just basic for us to move as a culture. This is huge. This is huge. So I'll leave you with that.
Strong.
That's my last point.
Strong point. Strong
Yes,
point, D. Strong point, D.
Yeah, really. That's big, especially on passing down the trades you learned in life to your kids. Not to get away from the subject, but my dad, like growing up, my dad was a good mechanic, and that's something I ain't like getting my hands dirty or whatever, and the stuff I had to do with it. My mom actually made me go out there, get out there with your dad or whatever. But today, I can use those skills, you know what I'm saying?
right.
Something happened, and I try to pass down to my kids. It was a different generation, but y'all help me with that. Y'all keep me,
Sure.
Yeah, and I think that's big. And there's one quote I want to read that was in the book, if I may, not to prolong the time, but
You're fine.
Which with the education, like your thinking, like for instance, this is what it says. It's one quote. It says, "When you control a man's thinking, you do not have to worry about his actions."
Come on.
That's
So, to this day, you know what I'm saying? That's something big. I mean, quotes and things like that will never change. 'Cause it's sad though. You know what I'm saying? If you can read that, you can take it the wrong way or whatever. Good or bad. You know what I'm saying? If you control that mind, you got him. I mean, regardless. And that's, I think, in a way with the education, that's what he was trying to put us, so they wouldn't have to worry about us.
Absolutely.
They over here, so.
Absolutely.
It's just, something to think about to make sure, like, you know what I'm saying, what you're reading or what you're taking in or what you're learning and what you're teaching your kids. Not just your kids, anybody
The
kid,
village,
your kid.
the
Yeah,
village, the
yeah.
community.
That's right, that's
The
right.
tribe,
Right.
whichever way you want to look at it. Austin?
All right. Well, hey, we thank you for staying tuned while we discussed.
Hold on. Before we go, we can't go without touching the educated proletariat.
Yes, that's where we're going.
Okay.
That's where we're
okay.
going. And so since he's so excited, right?
Got to, because this right here is going to set the precedent of what we're talking about, because it goes from, when you look at this historically, it was just marginalizing us. It was
Right.
depriving us.
Right.
But when, I'm going to let Austin go ahead and lead us into it, and then, but I'm about to run up out my shoes on this one.
Yeah, it'll get a little bit contentious, right? In a good way, though, right? So, not to insult anyone's intelligence, right? But we want to segue into the educated proletariat, and why society and government fears them, right? So, so that we're all on the same page as an audience, as a family, the proletariat refers to the working class, right? Proletariat. If I'm not mistaken, the word is French, derived out of Latin, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
Latin proletarius. So Latin word proletarius is a word that derived from Roman,
Exactly.
right, working class, quote unquote, poverty-stricken lower class slaves, if you will.
Yeah.
Polarius derived into proletarian, but you're absolutely correct.
Yeah,
Exactly.
and these proletariats stayed on the outside of the city.
That's correct.
They weren't even allowed to go inside the city
Right.
because that was frowned upon. Almost like when where's the book at? It's down there. Class by I can't remember her name right now, but it's in here.
While he's
Class.
pulling that up, let me just let the audience know that zoom in on these books. And I'm not sure what y'all has up there, but I'm sure they're all good books. Zoom in on those books. If you get the opportunity, go out and purchase those books, or
Right.
go to the library and read them. So pretty sure he's got some good ones
Yeah,
up there
and-
that I saw.
and that-
Just read too, right?
Right.
Whether it's fiction, nonfiction. I'm a fan of biographies and autobiographies, but everybody, tomato, tomato.
Correct.
But
Yeah.
just pick up a book sometimes. That's what we're trying to foster.
Yeah, so when you look at the educated proletariat, because of where it started, when you look at when you read this book, Cast, I haven't read it all, but I have read a good portion of it by Isabel Wickerson, and then you go and you watch this movie, Cast. That depiction when you can see how people are treated. This is how most people have always been treated, and this is again, this ain't to be ugly. This is just facts throughout European society. Somebody have to always be at the bottom.
Right.
And somebody have to always be on top being worshipped. But that influence resonates around the world today, which is why we as melanated people
Right.
are looked down upon or looked at funny from a large portion of the world throughout various different countries and societies around the world because of that, we're not a working class people. We're not an educated people. When we know 70% of all master's degrees in this country, black women have them.
Right.
When we know 60% of
Say
all
it.
doctorate degrees in this country is amassed by black men and black women.
Say
So
it.
I want to know where the hell the dummies at.
Say it. Say it.
Pass that along.
Right.
Yeah, I want to know where the
Right.
dummies at when it comes to our people. It don't exist the way it's being presented.
Right.
And this isn't to knock anybody, as I said. It's just going to be topics sometimes that people are going to be hard. It's going to be hard for people to swallow.
Of course.
They're going to get upset. But if you listen, it's not an attack about anybody. It's putting facts that they're trying
Right.
to cleanse it, to wipe away.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what's important.
Right.
Go ahead.
All right. So we'll hasten on, but yeah, we want to make sure that everybody understands what we're talking about, right? So 90% of society is the proletariat, right? It's the working class. But historically, the proletariat is the backbone of the industrialized society.
Yeah.
They do all the work in the factories, the farms, the service industries. I would like to not to say that it doesn't even matter who made the quote. But there is a gentleman in his critique of capitalism argued that the proletariat would eventually become conscious of its exploitation and challenge the ruling class. So the proletariat, the bourgeoisie, what happens?
Versus.
Right. They overthrow at some point because
Every time.
their back and their necks have been trodden so much, right? You can't take any more.
Every
right?
time.
Right? You're producing 100% of the grain and you're getting tenths, right?
Yeah.
You're getting tenths. You're getting
You
scraps.
ain't getting shit.
So I don't want to dominate. And I now that we've explained fully, we don't need examples. So we just want to continue to delve in, right?
Yeah,
Because
some historical references.
right, and this relates back to books.
Back to books.
This is why they don't want us reading.
I don't
right?
want you reading.
You're
man.
gonna stay in that same lot.
Yeah.
But go ahead, gentlemen.
I'll just I'll say this one quick thing that one of the references that he was that Austin was referring to is Karl Marx. Karl Marx is a German philosopher. Good, bad, and indifferent. I'm the type person, I speak the truth no matter. I accept the truth no matter who says it, and I just want to say that back to teaching the youth, and you're gonna hear me say that, you probably get tired of me. Don't throw tomatoes, but if we educate our youth to ownership of these businesses and stuff, and not so much as being the proletarian, as the poverty-stricken proletarian or the workers in the field or whatever, own the fields, own the corporations, own the stores, and then we, as the village, we support that person. See, you might have a sewing store, and you might have a market, you may have an airport. This is the same thing. This is no different from, you guys have heard of the Gap Band, and I went straight too far, but Gap Band, how's the Gap Band equate to what we're talking about? Well, the Gap Band was in a place that Gap, they were in a place where you guys heard of the
bombing.
Yeah, the bombing, but you guys have heard of the what was the name of the
You dropped the
no,
not the song.
no, not the song, but the song, but it was more of the what do we call Black Wall Street, right?
Oh,
You guys
yeah.
heard of Black Wall Street, so
Yes.
that Black Wall Street comes from this area. So being the Gap Band, how it ties into it. Does anybody know what Gap Band stand for? It's a rhetorical question. Greenwood, Archer, and Pine. Greenwood, Archer, and Pine. What does that mean? Those are the streets from Black Wall Street, and those are the streets and the place that they bombed, right? So go research that as well and cross-reference that. That's where you get the Gap Band from. That's where they're from, and that's what they took that out of. I say that just the saying of ownership of stuff. Getting back to my point, teaching our youth to grow to own stuff, not necessarily to work for somebody, but you need to be a work until you can own it.
Yeah.
You know, so we're looking for ownership, even if it's at a small age. We got youth right now that are 8 to 10 years old that are millionaires. Started off with a lemonade stand. Now they have a lemonade that's inside of the supermarkets, of which we go buy. Oh, girl, this is good. You know.
Right.
So entrepreneurship.
Yes.
That's where I'm going with that.
Right.
And we will have entrepreneurs on this show.
Yes.
Most definitely. Travis, anything on the proletariat?
Yeah, I would like to go a little bit in depth on what he's saying about ownership and the days of when we were growing up, how we were taught to just be workers. You work hard enough and you'll get what you need, and that's what I'm kind of straying away from with my children. I am teaching them to, yes, be a hard worker, but never be content with just working for somebody else. You use that money to be what you want to be in life.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
And I would like to piggyback off of him and say to the American society today, if we go back to the late 1960s, early 1970s, there's a guy who will later on become president running for governor of California by the name of Ronald Reagan. And before Reagan, public education was considered a public good. Once Reagan took office, we started paying out of pocket to go to school. And now look at what we pay. Every year the tuition prices have increased.
Right.
I know I'm in 40-something thousand debt of education, and my education came once I learned the research. It came from me. The higher institution, yeah, you taught me the research, but that's all, because a lot of the information I was learning when I was in school was a bunch of rubbish. And I learned that because I was researching. But let me say this right here, the demise of mobility. When you look at, this is Ronald Reagan, and he's worshipped in this country, and he was a disaster. This is not this, and I would say it's my opinion, but it's based upon my understanding. But it's still my perspective. Some of y'all gonna love him to the end of time, but you just don't know how bad he was messing us over as a country, and or as a group of people, a community. If the people's, he said that if people possess a higher education, they can see through the facade of lies. You know, this is him. He also said, if the citizenry is educated, they will always act against our political structure. So guess what we need to do? Keep them dumbed down. It goes all the way back to when we look at the Rockefeller school system.
Yes, for sure.
So if anybody want to expound off that, then let's get it.
Well, I'm
Just a quick question I'd like to ask Brother Sharice. So why would you, just your perspective, why would you think they, education should be free or was free in the beginning? So why you think was the purpose of paying so much as a fee for education?
Well, if you make it difficult for people to go to these institutions of higher learning, then they can't go back and educate their community. So, and I know a lot of that came from us having Angela Davis and or Stokely Carmichael, just to name a couple.
Right.
And our beautiful sister that just passed away, what was her name? The writer, the poet?
Maya Angelou.
No.
oh my God.
She interviewed James Baldwin. Beautiful lady. I can't believe
We just
we just had a conversation about her. When you look at what they did, not just for the melanated community, but the awakening of everybody. Because you got to think, during the 60s, all this ugly racism was damn near non-existent. Everybody's cohabitating. Yeah, we need civil rights. Women wanting rights. Men us melanated men, melanated women, the Asians, everybody wanted rights because nobody had rights but one particular demographic.
Right.
And what was that demographic? And this is the truth being told. Again, this is not to upset anybody or to offend anybody. Go back and do the research yourself. What demographic had everything? That Vietnam War that we lost, that everybody was protesting. You know what they did to college kids on the campuses?
Right.
Come on,
The
brother.
same way they did them up at Emory.
Same way they did them
couple
up in
months
Emory.
ago.
You know?
But that's another topic. So.
Yeah.
I like to chime in on that. Like, it kind of goes back to your quote from earlier when you said that when you control a man's way of thinking, you have to worry about his actions.
Right.
If you make the education unaffordable, they'll always do kind of what you said earlier.
Right.
They'll continue to go through the back door.
Right.
As
Well,
you
you
look
can't
at it
be.
with some of the political figures now, where they say like wokeness and things of such,
Right.
they'll tell you that college is bad, higher education is bad for you and yours,
Right.
all while at the same time they're sending their kids to those institutions.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. Nikki Giovanni.
Nikki Giovanni.
Exactly. Oh my
Yeah.
God, thanks, brother.
And think about it. Ronald Reagan telling the proletariats, don't go to school, mate. Of course, he didn't talk like that. I just wanted to say that, y'all.
He can do impressions as
but
well.
the whole time, he has a bachelor's degree
Right.
in economics, bachelor's of art in economics
Right.
and so forth.
Right.
But then turning around and telling you or telling Congress, especially the local Congress out in California, that education is bad. Do we not call that hypocrisy?
Right.
Definitely.
I think we might, Mike.
I agree.
Education is bad, but the very same person that tells you education is bad has multiple degrees.
Has multiple degrees.
Yeah. So, guys, I know we're having a great time here, and we're hastening. I think we've been going for about 50 minutes, right?
Okay.
So we just want to encourage, and obviously, this topic will be, part 2, part 3. It's almost like the essence, right, of the podcast. So we'll delve back, give more examples later, But look at Nat Turner, Proletariat, right? Everybody talks about all these others. The man was educated. Look at the Black Panther Party, and they were labeled the militant intellectuals. So we'll touch back bases. We need to kind of draw the reins in a little bit. So unfortunately, on this show, we're going to always plan to touch on at least 1 or 2 current events or topics, right? And there are so many testy things to be discussed. We'll have a lineup, right, which you guys out there are
Our stars.
Yes, you are going to be giving us, not only books that you want touched on, but topics and the different interviewees that we bring on. So what we want to do now, right? So I think we've done a good job at putting out, and we recapped as we went, right?
Yeah,
So
right.
that's what was important.
We would like to give a shout out to Anniston Parks and Recreation, especially Miss
Nika Stringer.
Miss Stringer,
Yes.
Nika Stringer, for giving us the okay to live stream from the Juneteenth Heritage Foundation Festival.
Exactly.
My bad. Festival this year. That's a big thing for us.
Yes.
We're going to be on site. We're going to be streaming live, and we hope everybody come out. Again, a big shout out to Anniston, Alabama Parks and Recreation
Yes.
for granting us that
Yes.
and that opportunity.
Yes.
And this is beautiful for us. And again, we're just getting started. This is our first show. We wanted to wild out, but
Pop the corks.
here we go, man.
Right.
Everybody was nervous. I know I was.
Right. And so the Heritage Festival in Anniston, it's a big deal, right? When I was talking to the young lady, they have a big lineup. It's obviously going to have vendors, food. It's going to be super informative. You'll have people with merch, things of that nature. I think they've already booked. If you guys don't know, H-Town and Sir Charles as some of the venue entertainment, right?
Right,
Yeah,
right.
yeah,
So
yeah.
that's been verified.
Yeah.
So I think with that, we want to implore all of you guys, to like, subscribe,
And share. And with
Share.
that being said,
hit the
Brian-
notification button.
At this time, we'd like to. I didn't
Yeah.
mean to cut y'all. We
No,
good?
you
you're
good,
fine.
brother.